HorrorDeconstruction.
What's up, everybody? It's the HorrorDeconstruction. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, but most likely on YouTube. Give us a like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell icon. Hit that subscribe button. Let these people know about the show with your host Komp for this solo deconstruction for 31 days of horror, leading up to October and leading up to Halloween. Today's film is Creepy. 2016. Takakura is a former detective. He receives a request from his ex-colleague Nogami to examine a missing family case that occurred 6 years earlier. Takakura follows Saki's memory. She is the only surviving family member from the case. Meanwhile, his neighbor is up to some weird stuff. Now, that's me paraphrasing the extremely, for no reason, long explanation on IMDb, but that's what the film is about. It's a psychological thriller, detective, dark movie anyway. Directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, written by Yutaka Miyakawa, who wrote the novel, Chihiro Ikeda, and Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who did the screenplay. Starring Hidetoshi Nishijima, Yuko Takeuchi, and Toru Baba. So, Creepy is a film that got some pretty notable exposure when it was released in 2016. This is obviously by the director Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who is probably one of the more elite directors in Japan. He started out as primarily a horror director, but he got into a lot of psychological and a lot of different types of films. He's very different in every type of movie that he does, although you can definitely see that there's a stamp of his material. His previous films, obviously, Pulse and Cairo, you can listen to our episode that discusses that one. I think it's probably one of the better ghost films ever made, and that's from Japan. He did Tokyo Sonata. He did a whole bunch of films, and we also recently reviewed Cure, which is another film that's sort of similar to this. This is in that psychological thriller drama type of film, but it does have, small things of horror within it, as in like serial killers and stuff like that, as where Creepy had some, Cure had a bit of supernatural elements to it. And well, anyway, this film, we deal with the main actor, the character Takakura, who is this guy who, at the beginning of the film, we're in the past, and we see that he's this psychological expert, like this cop who's able to just, talk to criminals and try to find out, their motives, and that way they can build a case against them. Because in Japan, it's a really different way of processing criminals over there. They have a couple of, they can hold you for as long as they can in trying to get this information out of you, but then once that's done, it's over, so they have to really get a solid case against you. And their statute of limitations is like 15 years, so if you commit a crime and disappear for 15 years and come back, then you can be and nothing will happen, I think, which is ridiculous. So Takakura is here. He gets assaulted by a criminal, and I guess that leads to his retirement because him trying to talk down the criminal did not work in that instance. Now, he's a professor at a local college. He's far removed from his old job. But one day, an ex-colleague comes over and asks him to look at some material, to look over this case that they couldn't figure out. And at the same time, as they moved into this new area, he and his wife, Yasuko, they are trying to make friends with everybody in the neighborhood because, you want to be new, you want to be nice, you want to be respectful to other people and let them know that you're there, so you bring in gifts. And they meet their neighbor, played by Teruyuki Kagawa as Nishino, and boy, does the movie title Creepy, boy, is it correct, because this guy is just he is aloof and he is unpredictable and strange. And I really don't want to spoil the film, but I think the elements that really work here is that it's not a quiet film, but it feels like there's a lot of silence in the movie, and that there's always something underneath the surface, which is a main element of the actual film itself. And Takakura, who starts slowly become obsessed with solving this original case, which had a family missing, and then there was one a young girl who survived it, and him trying to get answers from her, and him trying to break her down, and trying to figure out what the hell she knew, and if the killer was still around, This guy who kidnapped people and tries to. It's an interesting thing because when we do find out the killer's motives and how they do it, it's like so crazy because people have got. If you've seen the film or the series, the Forest of Love by Sion Sono that I covered a while back, it's sort of similar in a way about a person using unusual methods to control others, and that happens here. And then also the relationship between their neighbor, who's this weird guy, and you're wondering what his story's about and how that connects to this, case that Takakura is dealing with. I think that Kiyoshi Kurosawa has this really elegant way of filmmaking. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel forced. It feels like everything is laid out. Like it doesn't feel like anything is just made up on the spot. Although I can't tell in a Japanese film if there's improv or anything like that. In this type of film, it just feels like completely layered out and just perfectly done. And the interactions between Takakura and Nishino, and then also Yasuko, his wife, and her conversations with Nishino, and then Nishino's daughter Saki, played by Haruna Kawaguchi. And they have a wife. He has a wife that she's hidden away, and we're trying to figure out why is she hidden all the way all the time? Why do they ignore talking about her? And just this dynamic of this Takakura and his relationship with Yasuko, sort of crumbling away, and Nishino, you don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, but he's most definitely a strange guy because the way he interacts with people, like he's nice one way and he's like a total prick the other, and he's just like, what do you want to know about me? And then the other times he's like completely open and happy, and it's just like really interesting way that these character dynamics play off of each other and what it leads to. And it has a very satisfying ending because I was like, when it was getting towards this ending, towards the last 10 minutes, and I'm looking at the time running out in the film, and I'm like, oh no, I'm like, is this how this movie's gonna end? Because it's led down a very dark road, and you're just like, oh, is this gonna be like some sort of open ending? But it has a very satisfying, although probably not totally satisfying ending for everybody. For me, it was. It's very much in the lineage of how Cure ended, where because this guy, the director, knows how to make a real bastard of a villain, and he's really good at casting these bad guys in these movies, and just as well the good people in the movie, like Takakura is a good guy, but he's very ignorant of, I guess, his wife's needs. Although I, as a just an observer watching the film, I didn't even notice that there was some sort of crumbling between the two of them. And then also, Yasuko being drawn into Nishino's world and stuff like that. And then there's like there's this weird apartment complex, and there's like dark stuff, and there's murders in there, and the detectives being involved. I really enjoyed the overall experience of this film, and Kiyoshi Kurosawa once again proves how solid of a director he is. And it's good that there's an ongoing mystery that's going on. There's two mysteries going on at one time, with the neighbor and then also with the missing family. And the more and more we chip away at these mysteries and we get an answer, it's like a really interesting outcome from all of this put together, and it solidly all ties together to make a really satisfying end. It's a dark ending, but it's still something that doesn't make, I guess, it didn't make me feel bad, and I felt good about the ending of the film. But it certainly is an interesting and truly dark type of film that I think you would enjoy if you're into like films like Seven or 8mm or those kind of dark. It's not a overly graphically gore film, but there is disturbing elements of death and stuff like that in this movie. So if you're into that dark detective kind of neo-noir type of film, I wouldn't say neo-noir, but it is definitely in the dark mystery angle of cinema. So I would definitely recommend seeing it. So I would give this an 8 out of 10. When you're done, you're plastic wrapped, sealed up, and tossed in the trash. And with that, this has been the Horror Deconstruction.